The blade was 6 inches from her throat when Riley Santos realized the terrorist hadn't come for intelligence or tactical advantage. He'd come for her soul. 24 hours earlier, she'd been nobody, just another khaki-wearing instructor drilling cocky recruits through obstacle courses. Now, bleeding from 3 wounds and staring into the eyes of a man who'd spent 5 years planning her death, she understood a terrible truth. The ghosts she'd created in foreign deserts had followed her home, and the 4 young men she'd been training were about to learn that becoming a warrior meant more than pulling triggers. It meant carrying the dead on your back for the rest of your life. The California sun burned hot over Marine Base Oceanside as Riley Santos watched recruits struggle through rope climbs and mud crawls. At 34, nothing about her appearance suggested the decade she'd spent executing classified operations across 3 continents. The standard-issue uniform concealed scars that mapped a geography of violence most people couldn't imagine. "Hunter's technique is garbage," she muttered, as a blonde recruit with linebacker shoulders tried muscling up a climbing wall through sheer force rather than proper form. Beside her, Victor Kane's weathered face creased into something resembling a smile. At 65, the old operator moved with the careful precision of someone whose body remembered every firefight, every hard landing, every close call. Kid thinks strength solves everything. They watched Blake Hunter attack the wall again, veins bulging, face crimson. Predictably, his grip failed and he crashed into the safety mat below. "At least he gets back up," Kane observed, his gravelly voice carrying decades of command authority. Riley studied the other 3 recruits in this specialized training cohort. Derek Walsh, analytical, cerebral, treating each obstacle like a puzzle to solve. Kevin Park moved with methodical precision, every motion calculated. Andre Silva watched quietly, learning from others' mistakes before attempting anything himself. None of them knew who was really training them. "Command wants my assessment Friday," Kane said. "The Sudan operation is being declassified for training purposes. Time they learned who's been evaluating them." Riley's jaw tightened. "Is that necessary? They need to understand what they're aspiring to become." She didn't argue. Kane had recruited her into Delta Force 12 years ago, shaped her into one of the most effective operators in American history. His judgment had saved her life more times than she could count. After losing his son in Iraq, he'd become something like a father to her. "Your call," she conceded. "I'll be in the mess hall at 1900. Hours later, Riley entered the crowded dining facility with military precision, selecting a simple meal and scanning for threats out of habit. She spotted the 4 recruits at a corner table, loud and animated. The only empty seat was with them. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Blake Hunter looked up, surprise flickering across his features, before settling into barely concealed dismissal. "Ma'am." The others mumbled similar greetings. Riley sat without comment and began eating as their conversation resumed. "I'm telling you, my cousin was support crew for the Sudan extraction in 18, Blake insisted, lowering his voice conspiratorially. 6 Delta operators, middle of the night, 17 enemy killed, all hostages extracted without a scratch. The team leader was like something out of a movie." Riley's hand paused imperceptibly. "That doesn't match official reports," Derek interjected, adjusting his glasses. "The team was at least 12 operators, and they took casualties." "Official reports are sanitized," Blake scoffed. "My cousin said the leader wore a mask the whole time, cleared an entire building alone, carried 2 wounded hostages out on their shoulders while taking fire." "Nobody's that good," Andre said skeptically. Riley ate mechanically, memory fragments flashing behind her eyes. Sudan, the compound, night vision turning everything ghost green. Mike Chen bleeding out in her arms after taking a round meant for her. Flying the extraction helicopter with blood in her eyes and a bullet in her thigh, refusing to let anyone else die on her watch. What do you think, ma'am? Blake suddenly addressed her directly. You work with special training. Ever meet any Delta operators? A few, Riley replied casually. Were they as impressive as people say? They're professionals. They do the job and go home, that's all. Blake's disappointment was almost comical. Before he could press further, a commotion erupted across the mess hall. Two sailors were nose to nose, voices rising, fists clenching. The fight escalated quickly. Within seconds, they were grappling between tables, chairs flying, spectators forming a circle. Blake immediately stood. We should break it up. Sit down, Riley said quietly. He stared at her in disbelief. Ma'am? This isn't your fight. Someone could get hurt. Sometimes doing nothing is the right choice. Riley took another bite. Choose your battles wisely, Hunter. His jaw tightened. With all respect, ma'am, if everyone thought like that, nothing would ever get done. The brawl intensified, drawing more participants. Someone's tray went flying, glass shattering. 4 against 4, Blake said, looking to his friends. We can end this. 4 untrained recruits against 4 angry sailors, Riley corrected. Those aren't odds I'd take. We're not untrained. Training isn't experience, and controlled sparring isn't a bar fight. One sailor suddenly produced a knife, and the atmosphere shifted instantly from drunken chaos to lethal danger. Spectators scrambled away. The knife wielder, clearly intoxicated, slashed the air wildly. Riley was moving before Blake could speak again. Her entire demeanor transformed, no longer an unassuming instructor, but something predatory and precise. Stay here, she commanded, her voice carrying an authority none of them had heard before. She approached the armed sailor with measured steps, utterly calm. The crowd parted instinctively. The man had backed 2 younger servicemen against a wall, demanding their wallets. Riley closed from his blind side, footsteps silent. Stop, she said when close enough. The sailor spun, weapon tracking toward her. Back off, lady. Riley remained perfectly still, watching his center mass, reading his breathing and balance. Last chance, put it down. He laughed and lunged. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. Riley flowed around the knife thrust like water, her left hand clamping his wrist with crushing force. His fingers opened involuntarily. Her right elbow drove into his solar plexus, folding him forward. She pivoted smoothly, using his momentum to spin him face down onto a table, one arm twisted behind him in a joint lock that made him cry out. 3 seconds, start to finish. Security arrived as Riley held him immobile, her breathing completely calm. Secure the weapon, she ordered crisply. Subject is contained. Possible substance abuse, definitely hostile. The lead security officer responded with notable deference. Yes, ma'am. As they took custody, Riley returned to her table, where the 4 recruits stood frozen in various attitudes of shock. She resumed her seat and continued eating her now cold dinner as if nothing had occurred. Long silence stretched before Blake found his voice. Where did you learn to fight like that? Here and there. Derek leaned forward. That wasn't standard close-quarters training. That was something else entirely. A lieutenant commander approached, thanking her for diffusing the situation. Then recognition dawned in his eyes. Wait, you're Riley Santos. You led the Sudan extraction in 2018. The 4 recruits' eyes went wide. I think you're mistaken, sir, Riley said, her jaw tightening, but the officer was certain. I've seen your file. Your team pulled those aid workers out. Blake's voice was barely a whisper. Sudan. The mission I was just talking about. Riley stood abruptly. Before she could leave, all their phones buzzed simultaneously with a message. Report to briefing room immediately, she said, her voice taking on that command tone again. Someone wants to speak with you. She led them through security checkpoints, where guards waved her through with obvious respect, down to a reinforced door marked with classification warnings. Inside, Victor Kane sat at a conference table reviewing documents. The cat's out of the bag, he remarked dryly. Lieutenant Commander Phillips recognized me in front of all 4. Kane sighed. "Have a seat, gentlemen." The recruits filed in silently. Riley positioned herself by the door like a sentinel. "I'm Colonel Victor Kane, former commander of Delta Force," he began. "And this is Major Riley Santos, formerly the youngest team leader in Delta history and one of the most effective operators I've ever commanded." He activated a projection screen showing classified imagery of a desert compound. Sudan, 2018. 6 operators infiltrated a terrorist stronghold to extract American hostages. Major Santos commanded that mission. The screen changed to night vision images of a team exiting a helicopter, faces deliberately blurred. Major Santos was shot twice during the operation. Kane continued matter-of-factly. She carried 2 wounded hostages to extraction while bleeding out, then flew the helicopter to safety when the primary pilot was incapacitated. The recruits turned to stare at Riley with new eyes. "So yes," Kane concluded, "the stories you heard are true. Except they leave out what matters most, the cost." He looked directly at Blake. "Does it still sound glorious now?" Before Blake could answer, the door burst open. A security officer rushed in, face grave. "Sir, we have a situation. Intelligence intercepted communications suggesting Ghost Cell operatives have infiltrated the base." Riley's posture shifted instantly to combat ready. "They're here for you specifically, ma'am," the officer added, glancing at Riley. "Syria is coming back." Kane's expression darkened. "How many?" "Unknown. Chatter mentions multiple targets associated with Major Santos." Riley turned to the recruits. 3 years ago, my team was sent to Syria to capture a terrorist leader. The mission was compromised. I lost 4 teammates that day. We later learned the cell leader, Rashid Zahir, had a mole in our network. We destroyed his organization, but he escaped and swore revenge." The gravity settled over the room like a physical weight. "We do what we're trained to do," Kane said grimly. "We eliminate the threat." Riley shook her head. "I'm not hiding while they hunt me. This ends tonight." Kane studied her, then nodded. He turned to the recruits. "You'll remain here in this secure room." Blake stood. "Sir, we want to help." "Based on what qualifications? We've been training for weeks." 3 weeks doesn't make you ready to face professional killers," Riley interjected sharply, but Derek stood as well. "If they're on this base, they're a threat to everyone. Sitting here doesn't make us safer." Kevin and Andre rose in solidarity. Riley studied them. Green, untested, overconfident, but also soldiers who'd sworn an oath. "If you do this," she said finally, deadly serious, "you follow every order without question. You stay back unless specifically told otherwise. Clear?" 4 heads nodded. "Your role is observation and support only. You do not engage directly. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," Blake replied for them all. Kane looked skeptical, but deferred to her judgment. "I'll take responsibility for them," Riley said. The Tactical Operations Center hummed with controlled urgency. Screens displayed security feeds, thermal imaging, satellite overlays. 4-man team highly trained, an intelligence officer reported, likely disguised as maintenance or support personnel. Kane highlighted areas on a digital map. Focus surveillance here, administrative buildings, barracks, training facilities. Riley studied the footage intently. "How many personnel movements in the last hour?" "Dozens. If they came through legitimate channels, they're blending perfectly." "Our priority is identification without alerting the base," Kane said. "Last thing we need is panic." Riley turned to him. "I'm more useful as bait. They're looking for me. Let them find me under conditions we control." After a tense moment, Kane nodded. "Set the trap. But you don't go alone." "I'll take Hunter and Walsh," Riley said. "Park and Silver remain here as communication liaisons." She led Blake and Derek to a quieter corner. These men are professional killers. If they realize you're with me, they won't hesitate to eliminate you." "Why come here?" Derek asked. "To a base with thousands of personnel?" "Because revenge isn't rational. Zahir blames me personally for his brother's death. This isn't tactical, it's personal." "What do you need us to do?" Blake asked, unusually subdued. "Act normal. We walk to the training field like we're conducting a night exercise. You follow my instructions precisely. No heroics. If I tell you to run, you run. Clear?" Both nodded solemnly. "If something happens to me, your only priority is getting back here and reporting. You do not engage. You do not attempt rescue." Kane briefed Kevin and Andre on communications protocols. "You confirm her status every 30 seconds. Miss 2 check-ins, we assume compromise and extract immediately." As Riley, Blake and Derek prepared to leave, Kane placed a hand on Riley's shoulder. "Be careful. I've lost enough good people to these bastards." Upon the night air carried a chill as they crossed the base toward the training fields, maintaining casual conversation about tomorrow's exercises while their eyes constantly scanned for threats. "Comms check," Riley murmured. "Reading you 5 by 5, Andre's voice came through. "All clear on perimeter sensors." Riley felt the familiar prickling, the sixth sense developed over years of high-risk operations. "Talk to me normally," she instructed, "like we're discussing training." Blake cleared his throat. "So, about that obstacle course tomorrow?" Louder, natural. Derek joined in. "Hunters worried about the rope climb after today's performance." They continued their fabricated conversation as Riley guided them on a route exposing them to multiple sight lines. "Movement at your 2 o'clock, Andre reported. "Maintenance worker near Building C." Riley tracked the figure peripherally, a man in coveralls inspecting an electrical panel. "That section isn't scheduled for maintenance," Kane's voice noted. Riley deliberately dropped her clipboard, creating an excuse to bend down. When she straightened, she caught the man's reflection in a window. Recognition was instant. Samir Hassan, Zahir's right-hand man. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second before Riley continued walking. "Target confirmed," she murmured. "Hassan is on site, proceeding to Phase 2. Behind them, Hassan abandoned his pretense and spoke into a radio. "He's alerting the others," Derek whispered. "Good. That's exactly what we want." The training field stretched dark and exposed before them, floodlights off, obstacles creating multiple hiding places. "This feels like walking into a trap," Blake murmured. "It is," Riley confirmed calmly. "Just not for us." She led them to an equipment shed in the center. Once inside, she activated a tactical flashlight in the cramped space filled with training gear. 2 Oak were in position, she reported. "Intercept team standing by," Kane responded. Riley removed 2 compact sidearms, checking each before handing them to Blake and Derek. "Live ammunition. You use these only if someone opens that door who isn't me or Colonel Kane." Both young men accepted the weapons with solemn expressions. "Remember your fundamentals. Breathe, aim, squeeze." She moved to the door. "Don't try to take them all yourself." Kane's voice came through, using her first name. "This isn't Syria. You have backup." Riley slipped out into the darkness, leaving Blake and Derek alone with their weapons and the weight of their first real combat situation. She moved like a ghost between obstacles, night vision monocle transforming darkness into green-tinted clarity. She spotted the first operative approaching from the north, a lean figure moving with lethal precision. "North target identified," she whispered. "Armed and closing." "West target holding position near the equipment shed," came the response. Riley's pulse quickened. One operative was stationed near Blake and Derek. "Change of plans. Moving to engage West target first." She circled around, moving in near silence despite open terrain. The operative had positioned himself perfectly, clear sightlines to the shed and surrounding area. Riley closed the distance. 20 meters, 15, 10. A twig snapped under her boot. The operative spun. Weapon rising, Riley launched forward, striking his weapon arm as he fired, sending the bullet into dirt. Her knife-edge strike to his throat stunned him momentarily, but he recovered instantly, driving a vicious counter to her solar plexus. Riley twisted, taking the blow on her ribs. Pain flared, but training took over. They grappled in near silence, lethal ballet of two elite operators. Riley felt his fingers seeking nerve clusters. She dropped her center of gravity, using his overextension to throw him off balance, hooking her leg behind his knee to drive him down. She smashed her elbow into his temple once, twice. He went limp. She struck once more clinically, then secured him with a zip tie. "West target neutralized," she reported breathlessly. "Shed is secure." Inside the shed, Blake and Derek had heard the brief struggle, frozen with weapons trained on the door, hearts pounding. Suddenly their comms crackled. "All teams execute now." The floodlights blazed to life, bathing the field in harsh white light. From concealed positions, special response teams emerged. The 3 remaining operatives scattered. 2 made it to cover. The third, Hassan, found himself exposed in open ground, sprinting toward the equipment shed. "Hassan moving to the shed," Riley shouted. "Intercept!" But the response teams were engaged with the others. No one could cut Hassan off. Inside the shed, Blake and Derek heard approaching footsteps. They positioned themselves on either side of the door exactly as trained. The door burst open. Hassan rushed inside, seeking cover. He spotted them instantly, his weapon swinging toward Blake. Time slowed. Blake saw death in those cold eyes, the barrel tracking toward his chest. His finger tightened on the trigger. But Riley launched herself at Hassan from behind, driving him forward with bone-jarring force. His shot went wide, splintering wood beside Blake's head. "Down!" Riley commanded. Both recruits dropped as Riley and Hassan became a blur of violent motion in the confined space. Weapons stripped, blows exchanged with frightening speed. Unlike the unconscious operative outside, Hassan was elite, matching Riley technique for technique. A crushing strike to her injured ribs sent her stumbling into the wall. Hassan pressed his advantage, driving toward her throat. Blake raised his weapon, but couldn't find a clear shot as they moved too quickly. "We have to help her," he whispered urgently to Derek. "How? We're as likely to hit her." Hassan gained advantage, wrapping his arm around Riley's throat in a chokehold. Her face began reddening as oxygen was cut off. Blake saw his opening. Instead of firing in the confined space, he lunged forward and drove his pistol butt into Hassan's kidney with all his strength. Hassan grunted, his grip loosening just enough. Riley broke free, gasping, but immediately re-engaged with a vicious strike to Hassan's solar plexus. "Out!" she ordered the recruits between labored breaths. "Now!" They backed out to find controlled chaos. Response teams had neutralized one operative and were closing on the last. Kane appeared beside them, tactical carbine ready. "Where's Santos?" A final sickening impact sounded from the shed, followed by silence. Then Riley emerged, dragging an unconscious Hassan by his collar. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye, and she favored her left side, but her expression remained coldly professional. "Target secured," she reported. "Area clear." Kane surveyed her injuries. "Medicals incoming." "After we confirm all hostiles neutralized," he turned to the recruits. "Report." Blake straightened. "Sir, Major Santos engaged the hostile inside. When the hostile gained advantage, I intervened." Kane's eyebrows rose. "You engaged directly?" "Yes, sir." To Blake's surprise, Kane simply nodded. "We'll discuss that later." He turned to Derek. "Walsh." "Sir, Hunter's action created an opening that allowed Major Santos to regain control. It was the right call, sir." Kane studied both young men, seeing something different than before. "Secure your weapons and report to medical. Psychological debrief in 1 hour." As personnel secured Hassan with reinforced restraints, Riley stood watching, expression unreadable. "You got him," Kane said quietly beside her. after all these years. Not all of them, Riley replied. Zahir wasn't here. Kane frowned. Intelligence indicated he was leading this personally. Hassan would never operate without Zahir nearby, Riley agreed. He's here somewhere. A cold certainty settled in her gut. We need to lock down the entire base, she urged. Now, Kane began issuing orders. As security protocols activated, Riley turned to check on her recruits. They stood with medical personnel, being examined while providing details to intelligence officers. They'd performed better than expected, showing courage under fire and making sound tactical decisions despite lack of experience. Particularly Hunter, whose intervention had likely saved her life, though she'd never admit that to him directly. Then, her comm crackled urgently. TOC to all units. Security breach at the medical facility. Repeat, security breach at medical. Riley and Kane exchanged a look of sudden realization. Park and Silver, she breathed. They returned to TOC as ordered. Without another word, they sprinted toward the operations center. The pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. Ghost Cell hadn't come just for her. They'd come for anyone associated with her. Inside the TOC, Kevin and Andre stood processing everything they'd witnessed. I still can't believe Hunter actually hit one of them, Andre murmured. In training, he always talked big, but none of us knew what we'd actually do in a real situation. Kevin finished. Riley and Kane burst in, expressions grim. Report, Kane demanded. What's happening at medical? An officer brought up security footage. 3 minutes ago, an unidentified individual bypassed security, 2 guards down, non-lethal, perpetrator moving through the facility with knowledge of the layout. Grainy footage showed a figure moving with tactical precision through corridors, systematically avoiding direct camera views while neutralizing security with efficient non-lethal takedowns. That's Zahir, Riley stated with absolute certainty. I'd recognize his movement pattern anywhere. Kane studied the footage. What's his objective? Riley's eyes widened. The operative I neutralized first. Where was he taken? The officer checked. Medical Bay 3 for treatment before interrogation. He's not just an operative, Riley realized. He's the bomb. The word sent a chill through the room. Evacuate medical immediately, Kane ordered. Bomb disposal to Bay 3 now. As the talk erupted into action, Riley turned to Kevin and Andre. Stay here. Do not leave until Colonel Kane or I return personally. She headed for the door, checking her weapon. Kane fell in beside her. You're injured, he reminded her. Zahir came for me. This ends tonight. The door burst open. Blake and Derek stumbled in, faces pale. Major Santos, Blake gasped. We were at medical getting checked when the alarm started. As we were leaving, we saw someone entering the secure treatment area. He looked right at us and smiled, like he recognized us. Ice formed in Riley's veins. Zahir had seen her recruits, identified them as connected to her. They were targets now too. Change of plans, she announced. Colonel Kane coordinates bomb disposal. Hunter, Walsh, you're with me. Kane looked skeptical. You're taking recruits to confront Zahir. I'm keeping them where I can protect them. He's seen them now. They're already involved. Understanding dawned in Kane's eyes. He'd witnessed Riley's protective instincts before. Take a full tactical team as backup, he conceded. Riley nodded. Have them meet us at the south entrance. We move in 5. She turned to her recruits. Despite obvious fear, both stood ready. This isn't training anymore, she told them bluntly. You've seen combat tonight, made decisions under fire. I'm bringing you because you're already targets, not because you're ready. She looked each in the eye. Stay behind me at all times. Follow every order instantly. Your lives depend on it. Yes, ma'am, they responded in unison. One more thing, Riley added, her tone softening slightly. Hunter, what you did in the shed, engaging Hassan when he had the advantage. Blake tensed, expecting criticism. Good instincts. Terrible technique, but good instincts. A ghost of a smile touched Blake's lips. The medical facility stood silent and empty, emergency lights casting eerie shadows. Riley led her team through the south entrance. Blake, Derek, and 4 special response operators. They moved with weapons ready, communicating through hand signals. Bomb disposal accessing Bay 3 from exterior. Kane's voice came through comms. No sign of device yet. Copy. Any visual on Zahir? Negative. Cameras in central wing disabled. Riley processed this rapidly. If Zahir disabled cameras, he was planning something requiring privacy. The bomb might be a diversion or worse, a fail-safe. Stay tight, she instructed. Hunter, Walsh, 3 meters back. As they rounded into the main corridor, Riley's instincts screamed warning. The hallway was too quiet, too still. Down, she commanded, dropping to a crouch. Her team reacted instantly as suppressed gunfire erupted from an elevated position, bullets sparking where they'd stood moments before. Contact front, an operator reported. Shooter in ventilation access above nurse's station. Riley assessed rapidly. Minimal cover, clear lines of fire. Frontal approach would be suicide. Flanking positions, she ordered. Team 1, suppressive fire. Team 2 with me through east corridor to outflank. As operators executed, Riley turned to Blake and Derek. Stay in this alcove. Do not move unless directly threatened. She moved with practiced efficiency, leading 2 operators through a parallel corridor. But something wasn't right. The attack was too obvious for someone of Zahir's skill. Unless it's another diversion. Her eyes widened. He's drawing us away from the recruits. She activated comms urgently. All units, shooter is diversion. Primary target moving on Hunter and Walsh. Converge immediately. Riley sprinted back, ignoring stabbing pain in her ribs. The operators followed close behind. In the alcove, Blake and Derek stood back-to-back scanning for threats when Rashid Zahir stepped into view, movements fluid and predatory. Unlike his operatives, he carried no visible weapon, which made him more dangerous. The teacher's pupils, he said, voice carrying a slight accent. How fitting you should witness the completion of my work. Blake raised his weapon, but Zahir moved with blinding speed, disarming him with a precise wrist strike. Derek fired, but his shot went wide as Zahir spun, using Blake as partial shield while delivering a devastating strike to Derek's diaphragm. Both recruits, despite their training, were hopelessly outmatched. Zahir looked down at them, struggling to recover. She brings children to fight now. How the mighty have fallen. He produced a curved blade that glinted in emergency lighting. I had planned more elaborate revenge, but sending her your bodies will provide proper motivation for our final confrontation. As he raised the blade, a single shot echoed. Zahir jerked sideways, bullet grazing his shoulder. He spun toward the source, face contorting with recognition and hatred. Riley stood at the corridor's end, weapon trained unwaveringly on his center mass. Let them go, Rashid, she commanded, voice deadly calm. This is between you and me. Zahir's lips curled into a predatory smile. At last. The ghost who haunts my dreams. The nightmare that keeps coming back, Riley countered, slowly advancing while maintaining aim. It ends tonight. Zahir assessed her with calculating eyes. You're injured. Slowed. Not the formidable opponent who killed my brother. Try me and find out. Behind Zahir, the recruits recovered enough to begin moving away, following Riley's subtle hand signals. Your students lack conviction, Zahir noted without turning, but they serve their purpose in bringing you to me. They're not the targets. This is about Syria, about your brother, about the organization I destroyed. Raw hatred flashed across Zahir's features. You took everything from me. You took everything from yourself when you chose terrorism, Riley countered. Your brother died because he chose to shield you. He made his choice, just like you're making yours now. For a moment, Neither moved. Then Zahir moved so quickly Blake could barely track it, flinging the blade at Riley's face while diving for cover. Riley reacted with honed instincts, firing twice while dodging the blade by millimeters. Her first shot missed as Zahir twisted in midair. Her second caught him in the leg, spinning him off balance as he dove through a doorway. "Stay back," she ordered, pursuing with weapon trained. The room beyond was a laboratory filled with medical equipment and pharmaceutical supplies, lights off, casting deep shadows. Riley moved cautiously, every sense alert. "You cannot win this, Riley," Zahir's voice echoed from darkness. "Even if you kill me, you've already lost. The bomb's been found. Your operatives captured or dead. It's over." A soft laugh. "You think so small? The bomb was insurance. My true revenge will come when you realize what you've done." Riley felt a chill. "What are you talking about?" "Your mentor, the old warrior you revere, Colonel Kane. Did you know he was in Syria long before you?" Riley maintained focus, recognizing psychological warfare. "You're trying to distract me. I'm trying to educate you." In 1991, your precious mentor led a black operation into Syria. His team eliminated a high-value target, a man named Hassan Zahir, my father. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Kane had never mentioned prior Syria operations. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask him about Operation Sandstorm. Ask him about the village of Al-Qadim. Ask how many civilians died alongside my father." Riley pushed doubt aside, tracking his movement through darkness. "Even if true, it doesn't justify what you've become. It explains what I've become, just as Syria explains what you are, a killer haunted by failure's ghosts." His voice was closer now, but Riley couldn't pinpoint exact location. "The difference between us," Riley replied, "is I can live with what I've done because I know why I did it. Can you say the same?" The silence broke with sudden movement to her right. Riley pivoted and fired twice, hitting empty air as Zahir darted between shelving. Sharp pain exploded in her side as something struck her injured ribs. She stumbled but maintained stance, firing toward the attack source. Zahir had circled behind her, using the layout to his advantage. "You're slowing down," he observed, now directly behind her. Riley spun, but too late. Zahir's fist connected with her wounded side, driving air from her lungs. Her weapon clattered to the floor. Zahir pressed his advantage with precise strikes aimed at her injured body. Riley blocked what she could, countering with techniques forged in combat zones. But earlier injuries had taken their toll. A vicious blow sent her crashing into a cabinet of glass vials that shattered around her. Zahir stood over her, hatred gleaming in his eyes. "I could have killed you 12 times tonight, but I wanted you to know the truth first." He retrieved her weapon, pointing it at her heart. Riley stared up, blood trickling from a cheek cut. Despite pain and the weapon aimed at her, her eyes remained defiant. "If you're going to kill me, get on with it." Zahir's finger tightened on the trigger. "With pleasure." The laboratory door burst open, flooding the room with light. Zahir turned instinctively toward the threat. In the doorway stood Blake and Derek, weapons trained on him. Behind them, the response team was visible. "Drop the weapon," Blake commanded, voice steadier than his racing heart. Zahir assessed the situation instantly, outnumbered, outgunned, but still holding advantage of having Riley at his mercy. "Brave children," he mocked, "but untested. Can you pull the trigger before I kill her? Are you willing to gamble?" Derek's aim wavered slightly, but Blake's remained steady. "I won't have to," he stated with unexpected calm. Zahir's eyes narrowed. "And why is that?" "Because she's already moving." The momentary confusion, as Zahir glanced down, was all Riley needed. Despite injuries, she launched upward, driving a shard of broken glass into Zahir's thigh, where her bullet had struck earlier. The terrorist howled in pain, grip loosening just enough for Riley to twist the weapon from his grasp. In one fluid motion, she reversed positions, now holding her recovered weapon to his head. "It's over, Rashid. You lost." The response team swarmed in, securing Zahir with reinforced restraints. As they led him away, he turned to look at Riley one final time. "Ask him," he urged, voice carrying desperate intensity. "Ask Kane about Al-Qadim, then you'll understand nothing is over." As he disappeared through the doorway, Riley leaned heavily against the laboratory bench, adrenaline fading to leave raw, throbbing pain. Blake and Derek approached cautiously, expressions mixing concern and relief. "You disobeyed a direct order," Riley noted, more weary than angry. "Again." "Yes, ma'am," Blake acknowledged. "We figured we were already in trouble for the first time." Despite everything, a small smile tugged at Riley's lips. "Good call, but don't make a habit of it." As medical personnel arrived to treat her, she caught Blake studying her with newfound respect. "Something on your mind, Hunter?" The young recruit hesitated. "You could have killed him, ma'am." "You had the shot." Riley's expression grew solemn. "Killing isn't the objective, Hunter. Justice is. Zahir will face trial for his crimes, all of them. That's the difference between us and them." As medics helped her to her feet, Riley couldn't shake Zahir's final words. What had Kane been doing in Syria in 1991? What was Operation Sandstorm? Could there be truth to what Zahir claimed? These questions would have to wait. For now, the immediate threat was neutralized. The base was secure. Her recruits were safe. But as they exited into cool night air, Riley knew this was far from over. Some ghosts, once awakened, refused to return to their graves, and the shadows of Syria had just grown darker.